The following podcast is a deep, shallow dive production.
Okay, let's go.
Hi, Chat GPT. My name is Sarah, and I'm trying to make sense of something. Can you explain to me in simple terms, with easy language to understand, how the country of Israel came into existence? I would appreciate you making this again simple to understand and digest.
Certainly, Sarah. Israel's creation is a complex historical event, but I'll explain it in simple terms. Before Israel became a country, the land it occupies today was known as Palestine. People from various backgrounds, including Arabs and Jews, lived there. Here's how Israel came into existence. For centuries, Jewish people had a deep historical connection to this region. They had lived there in ancient times and had a strong religious and cultural tie to the land. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, a movement called Zionism emerged. Zionists believed in creating a Jewish homeland in Palestine. During World War I, the British Empire took control of Palestine from the Ottoman Empire, which was the empire that ruled the region before. The League of Nations then gave Britain a mandate to govern Palestine. In 1917, the British government issued the Balfour Declaration, which expressed support for the establishment of a national home for the Jewish people in Palestine. As more Jewish immigrants arrived in Palestine, tensions grew between the Jewish and Arab communities. Both groups believed they had legitimate claims to the land. After World War II and the Holocaust, there was a growing international consensus to find a solution for Jewish refugees and create a Jewish state. In 1947, the United Nations proposed a partition plan that would divide Palestine into separate Jewish and Arab states, with Jerusalem as an international city. The plan was accepted by Jewish leaders, but rejected by Arab leaders. On May 14, 1948, David Ben-Gurion, the leader of the Jewish community in Palestine, declared the establishment of the State of Israel. This declaration marked the official birth of Israel. Arab nations opposed the creation of Israel and launched a military conflict with the new state. Israel won the war and then actually even expanded its territory beyond what was originally allocated in the UN plan. Over time, though, many countries have recognized Israel as a sovereign nation. So, in simple terms, although even these simple terms are complicated and confusing, Israel came into existence as a result of historical, political, and international factors, including the aspirations of Jewish people for a homeland, British rule, international support, and a declaration by Jewish leaders. However, its creation also led to conflicts and tensions with the Arab population in the region, which continue to this day.
Okay, be honest. Did you prefer that as an intro or yesterday's podcast where it started off with George W. Bush and Bill Clinton? Anyway, hey everybody, it's Ray Star, Deep Shallow Dive. This is part 6 of our ongoing exploration of the current, again, incredibly sad for humanity and the civilians situation going on in Israel and Palestine. And, I wanted to start off this episode doing something that, to be honest with you, maybe I should have done in part 1, but I didn't on purpose because, and my main man David Nobles pointed this out to me. He said, hey, loved part 1, but would love some historical context on how we even got here, or I don't even know the history of this stuff. And neither did I, to be honest with you. And neither did probably anyone listening, to be honest with you guys. But I didn't start it out with what I just started out with, because to be honest with you, it is an incredibly complex thing. And I probably spent 2 to 3 hours, I'm not even kidding, over the past week trying to get different perspectives about, how did Israel come into existence? We talked about whether Palestine is recognized as a country. I think I started part 1 with that, and we came to the conclusion that it no longer is. And then, I'm not kidding, last night something hit me and I was like, you know what? Every story I read or every thing I listen to, video on YouTube, is coming from another person. And I've said this to you guys before. Human beings have natural bias. And so I realized, hey, why don't I ask ChatGPT this and let me see what ChatGPT comes back with? Because first of all, you're talking about something that doesn't have bias. Well, hopefully doesn't have bias. Obviously, even ChatGPT has been to some extent created and programmed by OpenAI's engineers. But I will say the fact that it is what's called a large language learning model, and it supposedly, again, I've never seen it in action behind the scenes, but it takes in billions of pages and billions of data points and analyzes those according to their algorithm in order to best predict the answer to your question. I thought, well, hey, at least as well as can be, this is going to strip any emotion away from the question. And so that's what I did. And again, for those of you that are like, how the heck did you do that? I then took the output, the text output from ChatGPT. I went into 11 Labs and I chose Sarah for the question, and then my go-to voice of Adam, I really like that guy's voice, for the answer. So there it is. Maybe listen to that a couple times. Honestly, I know I have listened to it a couple times because even the simple version is not too or all that simple. But I think that really does give at least an initial background and backdrop to how Israel came into existence in 1948, as far as the formal recognition. And again, I did it this way because, I felt like whatever I was going to say, somebody would argue it. And now take up the argument with ChatGPT. I've got a couple friends. If I had said this came from XYZ source, they'd be like, "Oh, that guy's a beep idiot." But I mean, again, I don't even know what your take on what ChatGPT said is, but you really can't call ChatGPT an idiot. Now, the other part of this is obviously there's religious, what's the word I'm looking for? Significance to that area, and there's claims of occupation that happened, 3,000 years ago. I hear the term 3,000 a lot. I don't know too much about that, so I need to look into that. And again, I'm going to try and look into it in a way where, I'm not going to lie. I'm going to call a spade a spade. If I ask one of my Jewish friends, they're going to give me one answer about that 3,000 years ago thing, and even about how it happened. If I ask one of my Muslim, and I realize I do have 2 Palestinian friends, which I have been talking to about all this, but if I ask them, they're going to give me another answer. And so I am going to try and figure out the religious aspect of that. But I think that ChatGPT did a great job, at least providing a framework or providing a little bit of backdrop for all that. All right, the next thing I want to talk about is my main man, Lee Mercer, my brother from another mother, who is literally a brother. I love that. Lee and I go way back, way back. Some of my best times in Los Angeles and the Virgin Islands were with Lee, where he's from. And we have had wonderful discussions, gosh, over the past, since the 2020 election. And I'm not going to lie, some of them got a little heated. Not really heated, but we definitely had opposing views. And we still kind of have opposing views on certain things. But like I've talked in previous episodes, and especially the episode I did with my high school buddy, Len Spacek, we can have conversations from things and learn from each other. And I will tell you, he opened my eyes to something with a message that he sent me on WhatsApp. And I'm going to read you guys his exact message. But one of the things I've been trying to make sense of is this disconnect between the democratic views of this current situation and Israel, and then the democratic base, which is made up of probably all American Jews for that part, Jewish people in America. They identify as liberals. There was a Pew Research study on that. I'm going to share that data as well. But overall, I've talked about this disconnect, and I'm going to play a clip from AOC that she said. But that disconnect, Lee kind of put it in a perspective that I can better understand. And let me read you what he wrote me. He said, "I'm listening to your cast now. On part 1, I have to disagree with you on AOC's position from the clip you played on part 2 of your series. Here's the deal. She's not," and then in parentheses, "and I include myself in this group, she's not anti-Israel just because she's pro-Palestine with regard to their historic oppression. You can be pro-Palestine and not be anti-Israel, just like you could be pro-Palestine and anti-Hamas. I believe that what you're seeing now is Democrats siding for equal rights for all and championing, again in parentheses, as they always have historically, the rights of the minority or the oppressed, which in this case are the Palestinians. Think about it. Apartheid existed in South Africa since 1948. For almost 40 years, it was ignored by all Democrat nations until it became an international humanitarian issue and the media began to shed light on the injustices there. The same is happening now with the Palestinians. People are waking up." He then went on to say, last text, "I believe you can be pro-Israel and pro-human rights. And I am pro-Israel as an ally to the U.S., but I also condemn their actions against the rights of Palestinians." It's exactly what Obama was saying in the one speech you quoted. As many Jewish people who condemn how Palestinians have been treated, attached is a clip from Jon Stewart, for example, and I'm going to play that next. He finishes it with this. "Okay, I'm done on this subject. I'm going to hop over to St. John and do my island thing." Damn, my boy got fired on his day off, so he's island hopping. No, I'm just kidding. He didn't get fired. Anyway, that was his text. Honestly, I got a lot out of that. I hope you guys did as well. Because again, it hasn't made sense to me, the lack of Democrat leadership and then celebrity Democrat outspokenness on this topic. So that kind of made sense to me. It definitely made sense to me. All right, let me play you the clip from Jon Stewart that he sent me. And again, for those that don't know, Jon Stewart is a Jewish American, and based on what I know, now I could be wrong. So if I'm wrong, somebody send me a note and correct me on this. But based on what I know, he's very well liked across the board, with, well, definitely maybe not by even some of the conservatives. I mean, I think Jon Stewart and Bill Maher have done I don't know if it's on purpose or not, but I think they've really ingratiated themselves to more than just maybe their previous base of fans and listeners. I know Jon Stewart, I remember he went on Stephen Colbert's show and went on a rant about how the Wuhan virus and the Wuhan lab, and he was like, "Are you kidding me? The virus is named after the lab. How could it not have come from the lab?" That's a hilarious clip. I'm going to find that and play that at some point. But anyway, so give this a listen from Jon Stewart.
"I'm called anti-Semitic because I'm against Israel's treatment of Palestinians. I'm called other things from other people based on other opinions that I have. But those shut down debate. If we don't have the wherewithal to meet each other with what's reality, then how do we move forward?"
That is a great question, John. That is a great question. Anyway, I thought all that was very healthy. I really did. Between Lee's take and then Jon Stewart's quote, hopefully that is starting to move us in the right direction. And, maybe we can scope this thing up from being about terrorism. You support terrorists, you don't support. I mean, nobody supports terrorists. I mean, come on. That's not what's at play here. That's just not. And the creation of that narrative, which, by the way, okay, you know what? I'm going to play this. This is where it's definitely caused me to change a little bit of an opinion about certain people. And it's really about the conservative pundits, the guys like Clay Travis and Buck Sexton, and I'm going to play you their clip in a second. I played them yesterday. They were the ones that interviewed the journalist that came under fire for her coverage and talking about the 40 babies. I don't even like saying the word dead and babies in the same sentence. That just doesn't feel right. So the babies. And let me play this. And I don't know, man. I feel like, and I'm not gonna lie, I liked Clay and Buck. I really did. I always thought they were balanced, and I always thought they had a lot of common sense to their takes. But give this a listen.
A huge amount of blowback on Democrats for helping to support Hamas and arguing that their actions are justified and refusing to condemn terrorism. And so you knew they were going to try to find a way to shift the blame. Just for the record, don't kill anyone.
Okay, I realize you need the context of this. So this is about a 6-year-old Palestinian boy in Chicago, I think, or Illinois for sure, that was stabbed by his landlord. This is so horrible. But this is MSNBC. This is Joy Reid.
On Saturday, Wadea Al-Fayoume, a 6-year-old Palestinian-American boy, was stabbed 26 times by his landlord in his Illinois home. The landlord also stabbed the child's mother more than a dozen times, though she is expected to survive. Detectives were able to determine that both victims were targeted because they were Muslim and due to the current conflict involving Hamas and the Israelis. Threats and threatening language are rising against both Muslim and Jewish communities. On Sunday, FBI Director Christopher Wray said there is an increase in reported threats inside the U.S. amid the war. Jews and Muslims alike, as well as their institutions and houses of worship, have been threatened. Joining me now is Mehdi Hasan, host of The Mehdi Hasan Show, and Michelle Goldberg, columnist for The New York Times. Her latest piece, The Massacre in Israel and the Need for a Decent Left, touches upon these complexities, in which she writes about the progressive Jewish community. Quote, "These are Jews who share the left's abhorrence of the occupation of Gaza and of the enormities inflicted upon it, which are only going to get worse if and when Israel invades. That the way keyboard radicals have condoned war crimes against Israelis have left many progressive Jews alienated from political communities they thought were their own." A great duo to speak with today. So I want to come back to that column and sit with that column for just a moment, Michelle, because it is excellent. I hope everyone reads it. But I want to go right back for just a moment. Thank you to this 6-year-old boy, Mehdi. Mehdi, talk about it just a moment, because it does feel in some ways like we are in a sort of a post 9/11 moment. And your thoughts on that and on the way the discourse has been unfolding.
In some ways worse than post 9/11, because you've got hate crimes against both communities. You've got hate in some ways imported from the Middle East into the United States against minority communities. And it's heartbreaking to hear a 6-year-old boy is killed in the Chicago area because of a foreign conflict, because of hate that arises out of a foreign conflict. This is a family, Joy, that fled from the West Bank, fled from the occupied Palestinian territories over a decade ago to get away from violence there, and they lost their son in the United States of America in 2023. It's absolutely horrific. And you have to ask the question, who wakes up in the morning and thinks, I'm going to kill a kid today? I'm not just going to kill a kid, I'm going to stab the kid to death. And I'm not just going to stab them once or twice, stab them 26 times. A 6-year-old boy. What kind of hate makes someone do that? It's not hate you're born with, Joy. It's hate you're taught. And I do not believe it was a coincidence that NBC News is reporting tonight that this alleged killer was an avid listener of conservative talk radio. We have heard some vicious and vile anti-Palestinian rhetoric in recent days from people like Tom Cotton, a Republican senator, saying, as far as he's concerned, Israel can bounce rubble in Gaza. Lindsey Graham saying Israel should level Gaza. Ron DeSantis saying everyone in Gaza is an anti-Semite and shouldn't be allowed into America as refugees. Marjorie Taylor Greene saying if you're pro-Palestinian, you're pro-Hamas. That is the kind of dehumanizing rhetoric. Some would say genocidal. What does it mean to flatten, level an area where 2 million people live? That is the kind of rhetoric that in many cases prompts people to acts of terror. Rhetoric leads to hate. Hate leads to violence.
Mehdi Hasan, you guys might recognize him, but he's a British-American broadcaster. He's of Indian descent. He's got his own show on Peacock, and he's also on MSNBC a ton of times. And by the way, Mehdi is definitely like the counter puncher against Clay and Buck on almost every issue. They really don't agree on anything. And, you know, Mehdi is also loved by most, well, prior to this issue, Mehdi is loved by the Democratic liberal base and all of the I Stand With Israel folks. And now he's one of the folks that really is, again, I'm not going to say he's coming off on the other side, but what I'm realizing and what I learned, and especially from what Lee shared, is, you know, these guys they're not pro-Hamas, they're pro-humanity, and they're pro-Palestinian civilians. So listening to what Mehdi was saying to Joy Reid, who again, Joy Reid, another like huge Democrat supporter, or should I say voice of the Democrats. I mean, she's loved. She's loved. So everyone right now that basically loved Joy Reid, you know, she's not giving you the take that you want if you are strictly, I stand with Israel, and you can't delineate. Here we go. I feel like we're getting somewhere this episode. You can't delineate between Hamas and Palestinians, between bad people and people who are just living their lives. And so again, if you can't delineate that, you know, if it's sort of one size fits all for you, then right now you're a Republican. Seriously, you're a Republican. You have to support Clay Travis, Buck Sexton, Lindsey Graham, Marjorie Greene Taylor, all these people that are the people that you loathed. I've been saying loathed a lot, I realize too. Anyway, I hope that all makes sense. And seriously, I want to encourage everybody that's listening, you know, send me your thoughts, send me your comments. I mean, literally what Lee sent me, it really did change my thinking. And not, I don't know if I'd say change my thinking, but it enlightened me. It really did. And it opened up my eyes to really understanding something that I was having a hard time grasping. And so anybody else, either side, either way, either anything, I highly would love it and encourage you to reach out to me any way you can. If you know me, you know how to get a hold of me. If you don't, you can go to deepshallowdive@gmail.com. You can also go to deepshallowdive.com, which is our website, and then there's a contact us there. Or if you go on all the social media platforms, you can find Deep Shallow Dive. You can find me, Ray Dustar. And by the way, God, I hate saying this, but I got to. Somebody told me you need to start plugging and asking people to give reviews. So if you like this, if you've liked the podcast so far, whether you listen on Apple, Spotify, wherever, I think there's a place, and I think you have to do it through your mobile phone mainly. You can give a rating, and hopefully I have earned 5 stars. And if you don't feel comfortable rating the show yet, don't worry about it. if you get to that point where you feel like I deserve a rating, that'd be great, because I do think that those ratings matter in terms of their recommendation engine and bringing it up to other customers or other listeners. So anyway, I got to say that. I hate saying stuff like that, but maybe I need to get in the habit of doing it. All right, next, get ready, because this ain't funny. My name's Ray D, and from this podcast, I currently make no money. All right, sorry. I had to bust in that Beastie Boys. Okay, somebody sent me this, and it is a young person on the social medias. This girl is 24, which I can't even believe this girl is 24 and dropping this kind of insightful knowledge. Now, I'm going to forewarn you, you might not agree with this, but again, in the spirit of this show and the spirit of just looking at things from all angles, I think this is worth a listen. And, we can't be afraid to listen to different perspectives. And you might listen to this clip and not agree with, her name is Brianna Robinson. You might not agree with anything she says. You might agree with half of it. You might agree with all of it. But it's worth listening to. So give this a listen.
Does anyone find it strange that both Mossad and the U.S., two of the most sophisticated intelligence agencies in the world, somehow missed what Hamas was planning? Anytime my feed is flooded with people saying the exact same thing in unison, I immediately become suspicious, especially when it is so emotionally charged. This is the pattern of psyops. Always, without fail. I'm not saying this is a psyop, but this is the pattern. The emotional pitch overrides logic, and those who ask questions are shamed. You don't support Black Lives Matter? Oh, you're a racist then. Oh, you have questions about Tim Ballard and Operation Underground Railroad? Oh, you support human trafficking then. I, for one, refuse to be lied to and have my emotions manipulated to further the elite's agenda. I believe the videos circling around are 100% real. Hamas is a tremendous evil. But you have to wonder why these attacks on Israel are being blasted out to the public so heavily while genocide of greater magnitude was kept in the dark, like Israel arming the Azerbaijani and Turkish genocide against Armenians. War is a very profitable business for a select few, and they could not care less who's caught in the crossfire. When things are being blasted across your timeline very heavily, just know that you are often being assigned your opinions and being told what to be outraged about. Please pray for the innocent people being murdered and tortured over this, but please keep your eyes open and be very discerning too. Things are rarely what they seem.
That's coming from a 24-year-old. Again, you may not agree with any of it. Maybe that pissed you off. You may agree with all of it. Maybe that was like, oh my God, that's exactly what I think. In any case, what she talked about was worth listening to. And she brings up a lot of interesting things. And by the way, the whole Armenian genocide, that's another thing. I've put that on my to-do list. I have a lot of Armenian friends, but I guess I'm ashamed to say I've never really asked them much about that. And that's my bad. That's on me. I'm going to definitely have those discussions and turn that into a deep, shallow dive. The other thing which was mentioned earlier is, just the concept of apartheid. I'm being transparent here. I've heard the word apartheid my entire life, but I can't really say I'm totally understanding of not only what it means, but then the use cases of it. So I'm going to put apartheid on the list as well for a deep, shallow dive, and I especially think that relates to South Africa. So we'll dig into that. All right, really quick, I'm going to shift gears completely and play you something from Megyn Kelly, the conservative Fox reporter. Give this a listen.
Dylan Mulvaney accepts the Woman of the Year award from some UK publication called Attitude. Look at this.
Woman of the Year award goes to Dylan Mulvaney.
Some see me as the Woman of the Year. Some see me as a woman of a year and some change, as I only publicly came out online 560 days ago. And some people don't see me as a woman at all.
I'm playing that for all you ladies out there. Come on, she won Woman of the Year. and she's only been a woman 560 days. Let's go. Let's go. LFG. Ladies, come on. Step it up. I'm kidding. Well, I think we really accomplished a lot today. I know I'm definitely feeling like my overall understanding of things is getting better and getting there, and I hope that rings true for you guys as well. Again, thanks, Lee. Seriously, you really impacted this episode tremendously. And so I think that's all for today on that stuff. Now I'm going to do something fun, and I'm actually going to start alternating a little bit. But yesterday I ended the episode with a quote from UFC President Dana White, which I really thought was good and I liked, and it's kind of making its rounds. I think last I looked, it's got like 6 million views or 6 million listens, or probably both. And so today I am going to leave you guys with a cappella version of one of my favorite songs from the band Tears for Fears, and it is aptly titled Everybody Wants to Rule the World. And so I'm going to play this for you. There's an amazing account on Instagram, TikTok. It's called VoiceUX. VoiceUX. I'll put it in the notes. These guys are amazing. They do really cool stuff, and they said I can play this at the end of the podcast, so I appreciate that. Lastly, thanks for all the continued support. Call a spade a spade. Turn up the volume in your headphones or whatever you're listening on, because seriously, this is like soul moving. And ladies and gentlemen, Tears for Fears.
It's my own design. It's my own remorse. Help me to decide. Help me make the most of freedom and of pleasure. Nothing ever lasts forever. Everybody wants to roll up. There's a room where the light won't find you. Holding hands while the walls come tumbling down. When they do, I'll be right behind you. So glad we've almost made it. So sad they had to fade it. Everybody wants to rule the world.
This episode was brought to you by Boost Liquid Vitamins. Wake up, take your Boost, start your day. Drink your vitamins, build your immune system with Boost. Available on Boost.com.